You're listening to Independent TV 7. Kindly click on the like button and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Independent TV 7. Also, don't forget to click the bell icon to get more notification. Thanks for watching. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has now told Nigerians the truth about the third time agenda. Kumalia has just revealed Obasanjo has not really told Nigerians about the third time bid. Honorable Muhammad Umara Kumalia is a former minority leader in the House of Representatives. In this interview with Temidayo Akinsoye, the former governorship aspirant of the All Progressives Congress (APC) in Borno State, speaks on several key issues in the polity, especially the controversy trailing the Electoral Act Amendment Bill and the revolt against the leadership of the National Caretaker Committee of the APC by some youth in the party ESAPs. You were a minority leader. The question has been thrown to him. He says, has been a minority leader in the House of Representatives and a full-time federal lawmaker from 1999 to 2007. Is there any difference between the National Assembly you served in and the current one? He answered by saying, I left the National Assembly 15 years ago, precisely in 2007. As you know, I served for full terms from 1999 to 2007. Truly, there is a difference between the National Assembly I was part of and the one in existence today. In the same vein, even the challenges that we had at that time and the ones they face today are also different. When we were in the National Assembly, especially from 1999, one of the major challenges we had was that for a long time, there was military rule in the country, and therefore people were not used to the role of the National Assembly in the governance framework of the country. As at then, what you had before then was the executive arm of government represented by the soldiers, and the judiciary, which was a permanent feature of any government whatsoever. The legislature was never there. So when we came on board, never there. When we came on board, one of the challenges we had was that people did not understand the constitution, and so they were asking questions like, who are these people? Even the executive arm of government was not used to having a different arm of government that is in charge of making laws for the country. Also, the former president, who was a former military head of state, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, as a person, was not used to the idea of having an independent arm of government that is responsible for making laws and our activities, which includes oversight functions of the activities of the executive arm of government. So that brought a lot of misunderstanding between the executive and the legislature during our days in the National Assembly. Now, 20 years down the line, the existence of the National Assembly is now acknowledged and their role also has been accepted. I think the challenge they have today is to make themselves more effective, efficient, and also their impact more felt in terms of their roles as legislatures. This, I believe, is one of the major challenges that they have to that extent. I think the National Assembly has to look at its system and processes to look at rules governing the functions of their committees, plenary public hearings, and how they will ensure that the impact of the legislature within the polity as a lawmaking body and as a body that is responsible to exercise oversight and also over the executive arm of government in relation to the powers of the executive to implement the laws that is passed by the National Assembly. That, I think, is what they have to focus on, and they must ensure they do that with integrity, selflessness, also altruistic intentions, and they must look for the best guiding principle in terms of the ethics and ethos of what a legislature should embody in the discharge of its function. The second question thrown at him says, 3 Senate presidents and a speaker were removed during your tenure in the National Assembly. What do you think was responsible for that, compared to now that there is a measure of stability both in the chambers? It comes down to the same issue I just talked about. At that time, we had challenges starting off, and the National Assembly wanting to stamp its authority and for it to be respected by the executive arm of government. That was not welcomed by the executive arm of government, who felt that the legislature was too overbearing and they want to dictate to the executive what they should do. They did not understand the need for the kind of symbiotic relationship that needs to exist. The checks and balance as envisioned by the constitution, because that was not fully understood. The executive felt that it was the leadership of the National Assembly that is leading the rest of the lawmakers in direct confrontation. Therefore, they needed to do everything to remove the leadership so that they can have a leadership that is more amendable to their own perception. That led to some of the reasons why the principal officers of the National Assembly were removed then, especially in the Senate. If you remember, throughout the life of the House of Representatives, especially during the period I was there from 1999 to 2007, no speaker was impeached. The only speaker that left office was Salisu Buhari, who resigned because of the personal challenges that he had, and not that he was impeached. Of course, that doesn't mean there were no attempts to impeach the speakers in that period. Several attempts were made. However, the House of Representatives stood its ground and ensured that it did not happen. I remember that another speaker had to resign for personal reasons. That was by Patricia Ife. Deputy Alhaji Babangida Nguruje also resigned. However, in the Senate, they removed about 3 Senate presidents from Evans Nwerem to Chuba Okadigbo, and also other force Wabara. This was the reason responsible for what happened to the National Assembly leadership then. But now I think the tendency of the executive wanting to lord itself over the legislature has substantially reduced. That is why we are not having that kind of a crisis. And now the question has been thrown to on a platter of gold, but as it is, he's trying to explain more and throw more light to why there is difference between the administration he was then and comparing to what we have now. The third question says, one of the most talked about issue during your period is the National Assembly, and that was the issue of third-time agenda. How real was third-time agenda as a then? Third time was real in the sense that there were active foot soldiers both within the executive arm of government and within the legislature. These people were promoting the idea of amending the constitution to allow for a third-time bid for former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Of course, the president then never came out openly to ask for a third-time bid, and he was always claimed that he never sought for it. But actions speaks louder than voice. Whether he came out publicly to ask for the third time or not, for those of us who were in the legislature, we knew the people that were working for those interests, who were campaigning among members of the legislature for the third time. I think one of the things that arose as a result of the backlash in terms of the acceptability or otherwise of third time is the insincerity in the approach to the issue then. I believe that although President Olusegun Obasanjo then claimed that he never sought for a third time bid, I believe it is not true. Indeed, he wanted a third time, and he was not honest about it. He has not told the Nigerians the truth about the issues. I think the approach accounted majorly for why Obasanjo, kept quiet. And I think President Obasanjo at that time lacked the courage to face the country and tell them that himself and his people have decided that this is what they wanted and want to do and how they think about it. And this is it. Though it's not under the constitution that there should be a third time bid, but Obasanjo kept mute, and that is why we are here today.